I'm Ben Hosking. I've spent over a decade in law enforcement providing executive protection, which we term dignitary protection, police tactical group response for high threat, critical response, counter-terrorism based scenarios, as well as providing room combat, search and rescue, and all sorts of other services around the Northern Territory. I'm qualified at the highest levels for dignitary protection throughout Australia under the Counter-Terrorism Committee doctrine. And in my career I've protected princes, prime ministers, presidents and principals all over the world. In 2017 I left the police and I now work at Panoptic Solutions, where we look after Fortune 500 founders, CEOs, executive leaders and directors of some of the largest companies in the entire world. This is a video about why 99% of security drivers get the smallest details wrong and how they can improve them just by shifting their positioning. I'm just going to go through 5 simple, quick fixes of positioning your vehicle. If you're a security driver, positioning your vehicle, well, if you get that wrong, that's going to either cost you your job, it's going to cost you your reputation, or worst case scenario, could cost you your client's life. And yet, drivers around the world still make these small mistakes. So today I'm going to show you positioning your vehicles for convoys, curbside, congestion, and crossloads. Also, a little bit contentious, cutaways. Section 1, convoy positioning. Ta-da! In a convoy, we've got 3 vehicles for today's example. You've got the lead, the limo, and the follow. And I'll indicate by drawing with a little black box and a triangle to indicate direction. The triangle with the green is going to be the limo. Lead, limo, follow. We're on a left northbound lane and we've got the limo vehicle stationed in the middle. As we come up to the intersection, what we should be looking for is the limo to be slightly offset just to the left or to the right, depending on where the threats are identified by the lead or the follow vehicles. All this should be being communicated via comms, which in a best case scenario should be with little curly whirlies or Bluetooth comm speakers in the ears and relayed on an open but secure channel that's utilised by the entire team. When we've got the principal, we've got to consider where they're loaded. So as the convoy is moving through traffic, if the principal's the back left, as he might be in Australia for a left-hand M-bus, D-bus, we have to consider that if that's where he is and there's pedestrians on the footpath or the curb here as the convoy is positioning, then we may have to offset to the right. If you've got dual lane traffic and the principal's positioned to the right, instead of parking up next to the vehicle to your right, you may offset towards the footpath. Just depends on the circumstances. So with our 3 vehicles, we have to keep in mind, every convoy in a vehicle has a purpose. Now, we may not be doing motorcades with the president, now that we're in private enterprise, but we do have to understand. The lead controls the speed. The limo carries a client, and the follow provides a protection. What you can't see so clearly here is the exact vehicle spacing, but your spacing is critical. Too close between your lead and your limo, and you're causing a bottleneck. Too far and you lose control of your convoy and people can break in. You want to remember, tyres and tarmac. You should be able to see the tyres of the vehicle in front of you and the tarmac underneath on the road, and there shouldn't be much more distance than that. Whether you're nuts to butts and you're driving convoy through the road, or you pulled up at the lights. Tyres and tarmac, just keep that in mind. Right, section 2, curbside, pick up and drop off. Points if you can name what the fancy word is for a curbside entry at a hotel. So here we go with a little bit of artistry again. We're coming in, we've got a left-hand entry into the porte cochere, into the curbside drop, and we're going to position the vehicle. Now, critical point is, we don't want to position the vehicle too far away, out here. If we're to position the vehicle out here, and we've got this flow through of traffic coming along, as the principal cracks the back door, and they go to get out of the vehicle, they've got this entire space. Now sure, the follow should be prepped and blocking that area. However, this is a bad drop. So we've got to keep in mind, we want to be positioning the vehicle in a place that gives the principal the least barrier of resistance or reduces the risk to the greatest degree so that the principal can have uninterrupted movement from the side of the vehicle into the building. Remembering, any movement in and out of buildings is the greatest risk location for any principal. So what we want is approximately 10 to 20 centimeters away from the curb, maximum. It should be so that the principal can crack the door and get straight out of the vehicle onto the curb without having to step on the road in between. It's at this point that the vehicles would then have set up, so you've got your lead vehicle, position ready for the takeaway. PPO1, CPO1, whatever you might term your bodyguard names and references, are in position, standing ready for the takeaway. Now, I don't want to get into doors and who's opening what and who's doing what. We can use that for another video. We're literally just talking about positioning curbside for a pickup and drop off. Now that we've got these vehicles all laid out, ready to go, you've got your follow, your limo and your lead all positioned. You're only approximately one step away from the curb. You've got to keep in mind that you want to be angled in a position that you're able to provide a quick exit if necessary. Don't mention the doors, we'll cover that later. All right, moving on. Section 3, congestion and privacy or positioning based on where you are in built up traffic. All right, so what you can see here is a high traffic built up area. What we're going to be considering is the discretion and privacy of the principal. We don't want their position in the vehicle known. We don't want where they're sitting in the vehicle drawing attention. We want them to be in a position where they're not boxed in. We don't want the convoy to be locked into a position where they're uncomfortable or can't make an escape. So if we're going to go through this lead, limo and follow 3-vehicle convoy again, as we can see, we've got vehicles evenly spaced at the stop sign or the stop light. After that, in the second lane, you've got 2 vehicles positioned behind the lead vehicle. This is not a convoy, this is just traffic. If we're going to come up in a northbound direction, heading towards the red light, the lead vehicle is looking ahead already and has realised that we're going to be held at stale rubies. With that being the case, the lead vehicle should be looking to offset. So basically the front of their vehicle should be in the middle of the second vehicle that's stacked at the lights. So the lead takes an offset position straight away. The limo, stacked back one space further, is now offset for the driver, should be looking directly across at the rear end of the vehicle to the right. And the P, sitting back left, is protected from any other vehicles that might want to come up. The follow, holding the rear position, ready to provide support, and if he needs to, come in for a blocking drill on the right to stop other vehicles from coming in. Mud maps aside, what professionals are looking to do is they're looking to park offset in traffic. So you're not looking to go eye to eye with vehicles, window to window, you're looking to be offset just a little bit. Use that secondary vehicle where you need to create a bit of a buffer and a privacy between the VIP and the public vehicles that are utilising the road space. Obviously, we don't want to create any disturbance or annoyance or any issues to draw attention to the principal. Keep in mind, you're also not there to draw any heat to the principal. All right, section 4, crossloads. Now this can be the one that brings people into the most harm because there's a little bit of a sense of urgency. Now, in this scenario, I don't want you to imagine there's been anything nefarious happen. There's nothing dangerous that's taken place. We're simply doing a crossload. I'd love to know some of the reasons that you've found that you've had to do a crossload with a principal in the past. Please feel free to drop them in the comments below. We've got 2 vehicles stacked up in a single lane. Sadly, what we've got in this scenario is the lead vehicle and the limo vehicle have had a fender bender. For whatever reason it's happened. We've now got the follow vehicle that is not disabled, like the first 2 vehicles have been disabled. The follow vehicle has got a responsibility now to move up into a position of cover, pulling up to the side, nose to nose, and being ready with the doors set to go ajar for the principal to cross load. In this instance, we'll have it so the doors are interlocking and the principal can shuffle across that passenger seat and move across into the rear left of the follow. This will now become the lead vehicle or the limo vehicle, and whatever you can do to get additional support will have to happen. The other consideration is that if there's no urgency to move the principal from the rear left of this vehicle and it's simply a down vehicle scenario, what you could do is walk the principal out of the side of the vehicle, over the roadside, around the rear of the vehicle and up in here. Remember, when there's no threat, what we're most concerned about is maintaining integrity, discretion, and the privacy of the principal. We don't want to embarrass them. We want to make sure that it's a nice, easy transition. We're going to control it. We're going to explain what's happening, and we're going to have linked communications between all of the parties involved, from the lead to the limo to the security follow. Some of the reasons that we may be facing a crossload, and you may have already dropped them in the comments below: vehicle breakdown. We've got a fender bender like this. What about a meeting? You've got a principal who's an ultra high net worth business person, founder, whatever they are inside of a company, and they're going from one vehicle to another to have a meeting with different staff, or they might be bringing staff up to their vehicle so they can have a meeting inside their limo. Comfort, it might be that you're going off-road. I'm an Australian, we're talking about Australian scenarios. You're going full driving, you're moving from a sedan into a full drive or a pickup or a luxury SUV. Or it could be an environmental factor. They might be cruising along in some sort of open air vehicle and it starts to rain, so they need to move into a covered, more enclosed, protected environment from the environment. The key for any of these movements for a crossload is to control the environment and link up your communication between your team members. If there is no risk to the principal, we always pre-plan our exits. When you're moving the principal without a risk, take your time. Ensure all the vehicles are lined up, minimise exposure, and make it a dignified transition from one vehicle to another. The principal might not even need to know the reason you're making the transition, simply that you're letting them know the vehicles have shifted position and they're going to have to transfer vehicles. The less interruption to their day, the better you are doing your job. The contentious bit, Section 5, cutaways. This is where you're leaving that building you arrived at and you're doing it in a safe manner. So cutaways. We've got our vehicles prepped. Lead, limo, follow. We're no more than a step away from the curb and the principals come out. Remember, we're not talking about doors because it's going to overcomplicate this little scenario. As we're coming out, we're going to be faced with being stacked at the exit of the Pork Shirt or the hotel that we previously arrived at, and we have to consider our movements. Cutaways, they can be very, very simple, but they can also go very, very badly. Just like any time you've got a principal leaving a building, entering or leaving, the risk exists for your departure as well. If you're funneling out with only one primary entry-exit point, such as this situation where you're coming out to the eastbound side, you have to be ready for anything to happen. Now, my personal preference, pending no specific requirement, or maybe you don't have a motorcade blockage for all the traffic, is to always veer with traffic and go for the fastest takeaway. It makes it much smoother when you're doing a transition. Lefts in Australia versus rights are a quicker form of exit. I would consider that that would always be the case that I would be looking to do unless I specifically had to change it. So cutaways or departures, as the driver, never stop scanning for threats. We're talking about the 99% factor here for security drivers and executive protection. While the security team ensures the client's security in the vehicle, and perhaps you're doing it as a solo operator, but you never stop scanning for threats. Once the principal leaves the building and they enter the vehicle, that's the new safe space for them as they're transitioning to the next location. You need to be eyes up scanning all the time. If you need to know more, please feel free to reach out to us, panopticsolutions.com. We've been running security driver training enhancement courses in Australia for the last couple of years. We come from a background of highly professional Tier 1, SF and regular forces, police tactical groups, dignitary protection teams, you name it. We've got law enforcement, military, corrections. We've got backgrounds in everything, and we'd love to share this knowledge. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask, please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks very much, punters. Take care out there. I'm rooting for you.